Glenn is an extension agent with the UH College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources on the island of Molokai, and he's actually held this position since 1981. So he's very experienced, and he's also a Hawaiian homestead farmer, and he likes to grow very large gardens. And,
All right.
and also, just as a side note, he likes to produce very comprehensive educational materials.
Great. Thanks, Sebastian. Aloha mai kako, everyone.
Uncle.
How's it? So the title of my presentation is Growing Seeds for Honua. This is an example of some of the seeds I select. This is okra. This is a Filipino variety called Filipino Ladyfinger, one of the better varieties for Hawaii. Next. I like to always start off with a saying, and this is probably one of the more fitting sayings for today. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. And I think most of the time you get all caught up harvesting and forget about planting. So that's an important aspect. This is another Filipino variety. It's a sweet pepper called Siling Mahaba. Next. I'm also a Holihua homesteader. My wife and I grow all kinds of vegetables, and sometimes my son helps when he's not fishing, hunting, or surfing. We grow, our main crop is bananas, apple bananas, but we also have avocados and vegetables, and we also grow vegetable seeds, produce vegetable seeds. Next. So this is my garden from earlier this year, our garden. We try to grow all kinds of different things, such as beans and Irish potatoes and lettuces, taro, cucumbers, squashes, and anything we like to eat. Next. So seed gathering is nothing new. Man has done this for probably longer than 10,000 years. This is an example of seed gathering by a Pomo native. The Pomo is a tribe from Northern California. Next. So this is a really important saying, okay, the importance of seeds. And I think most people don't realize the importance of seeds. And maybe I should read this. These resources stand between us and catastrophic starvation on a scale we cannot imagine. In a real sense, the future of the human race rides on these materials. The line between abundance and disaster is becoming thinner and thinner, and the public is unaware and unconcerned. And this is probably more important now with COVID than ever before, because a lot of these things have come to roost. Next. So seeds are the spark of the garden. If you have the right seeds, the seeds will flourish. If the seeds are not well adapted and they're stressful, you run into all kinds of problems such as insects and diseases. So having the right seeds is critical. Next. So seed security is food security. My wife likes to make little boxes like this, soda boxes, and gives it out to family and friends. And it's just our way of sharing with everybody our bounty. Next. So the first step is you need to know how to, and some people really have a hard time starting seeds, and this is probably the most important step, like how to plant seeds, how deep to plant the seeds. Things such as lettuce, you probably could just throw it on the top and shake the tray a little bit. On the left is a pak choi. You might have to stick it just a wee bit into the soil. Next. So climate change, we just started, we're facing some extreme weather. Molokai, we're no exception. Last month or so was probably the most unreal weather I've ever experienced living here for the last 40 years. And my nephew on the East End called it rain bombs. They were just bombing, and we had some areas were having over 10, 12 inches overnight. Unseasonable weather, heavy rain in the summer and drought in the winter. And as a result of this, insects are flaring up. They're responding to the weather, and we don't quite understand sometimes what's happening. And we must have had on Molokai over 10 years of drought. And last summer was probably the worst ever, with deer going crazy, nothing for them to eat. They're dying all over the place. And with this change comes new weeds that are better adapted to this new type of drought climate. Next. So this is a bad day on Molokai. Heavy rains. I was just able to fly over when the rains hit. Every river was running. And this is an example of climate change. Next. This is Northwest Molokai. We call it Ranch Momomi or Kavaloa Bay. And the same day with the rain, the mud just flowing into the ocean. Next. So in Hawaii, we have over 160 soil types, more than anywhere else in the world. And the climate, also we have almost most of the climatic zones, with the exception of two of them. I think one of them is tundra. We don't have any tundra where we have year-round snow. So each soil is slightly different. They have different needs. They have different ways of amending them, and it's just kind of an overview so folks can understand the diversity of the soil in Hawaii. Next. So this is a real important aspect. The key to pest control, and this is like diseases as well as insects, is to grow a healthy plant. So if the plants are healthy, they can sustain more damage just from being healthy. So this goes back to soil nutrition, making sure your soil is healthy, and a lot of diversity in the soil, a lot of organic, and knowing how to build your soil. Next. So soil quality affects food quality. So if your soil is healthy, your food will be healthy. If your soil is lacking in certain nutrients, your food will also be lacking in certain nutrients. Okay, next. So part of what I do, and part of what we need to do in Hawaii is develop new varieties expressly for Hawaii, with our changing climate, our high temperatures, our warm nights, and I'll discuss this a little more later. Next. And also breeding new varieties of tomatoes. We have diseases in Hawaii, new diseases that we need to get a control over, and part of it is developing new disease-resistant varieties. Next. So what are the breeding priorities for vegetables in the United States? Okay, there are two main priorities. One is cold tolerance, so the plants can withstand cold snaps after spring, like right now and before harvest, and early maturing, to harvest your crop before the frost arrives. And this is a critical problem in parts of the mainland. I have some friends of mine growing seeds in Virginia, and last year they couldn't bring their eggplants to harvest because the cold came too early and they couldn't harvest their seeds. However, these priorities do not apply to Hawaii and do not benefit Hawaii farmers. So who's breeding for us? Next. So these are some of Hawaii's challenges. Most vegetable varieties are not developed for Hawaii's tropical conditions. And one of the most important things about the tropics is we have hot, humid conditions with warm nights. And a lot of plants cannot handle these conditions, especially varieties developed in the Mediterranean, in Europe, and in the mainland. And they cannot handle these high temperatures. And then some of the conditions aggravated by climate change, like heavy rains. And I was talking to a farmer about 3 weeks ago. He said he grew all his lettuces and only one lettuce could handle the 10 inches of rain overnight. And so being able to identify these varieties that are adapted to our unique conditions is really important. We have year-round pest pressure, insects, diseases, and nematodes. We do not have killing frost. And a lot of the seeds of tropical varieties, such as Taiwan and Southeast Asia, are not readily accessible. Some of them are, but most of them are not. Next. So these are some of the things we look for: resilience and heat tolerance. So resilience means being able to bounce back from major weather changes, weather episodes such as heavy rains or heavy winds. Ability to grow with minimal fertilizer, low input farming. The cost of fertilizer is really high. We need to really take a look at this. Most of the varieties developed for production are developed to for high fertilizer input. And if you don't put a lot of fertilizer on it, it won't grow well. Pest and disease tolerance, I mentioned earlier, and a lot of different attributes such as taste, appearance, and you have to compromise. What is more important, disease resistance or taste? And you have to make a lot of choices sometimes. Appearance, we eat with our eyes a lot of times, and we want something that looks really nice. Next. This is a variety called Sierra, a lettuce variety called Sierra that is probably one of the most heat tolerant varieties. Right now, I'm trying to cross it to some of the other varieties such as Manoa and other things so we can develop new varieties for Hawaii. Next. This is a Kale, Lacinato rainbow. And if you see the one in the foreground, kind of a purplish, bluish variety, it has a fungus on it called powdery mildew. All the other ones around it, these are all the same variety, and all the others don't have this disease. So you would want to select varieties that can handle some of the diseases we have in Hawaii. Next. This is a beautiful cauliflower. Unfortunately, it takes almost a month longer to mature than other varieties. And in a month, all kinds of things can happen, from caterpillars to you name it, to diseases. So sometimes late maturing varieties may not work for Hawaii. However, a lot of varieties, I kind of like late maturing varieties because the plants are able to develop their structure before they flower, and you can harvest over a longer period of time. Next. Any questions, comments? Can somebody field the questions to me?
I don't see any right now in the chat, but now that everyone knows we can be asking questions in the chat, that would be good. But I have a question about this picture. What is that?
Poi.
Oh, it is. Oh, all the different varieties.
Varieties of poi. Yeah, there's a white one and a pink one and a yellow one and a light yellow one and a white one and a gray one. Yeah,
this is the one I had in my smoothie today. So whatever one that was.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, let's move on.
I've got a quick question about seeds, if you don't mind, Glenn.
Yeah.
So like you were talking about, like a lot of these seed varieties are not adapted to the Hawaii climate, right? So if we buy seeds from somewhere, typically these different seed varieties are not adapted. Growing a variety that isn't adapted to the Hawaii climate, let's say, for example, like a certain kind of squash, if I'm able to grow that squash here successfully, with each time that I grow it, it becomes more adapted to the Hawaii climate. Is that right? Is that fair to say?
Yes, I would say so. If you're making selections, because say if you plant 5 varieties and one of them does much better, then you take that one and you grow it again and you select again. It has to do with selections a lot of time. But yes, I have some friends on Molokai that have their own corn varieties that they've grown for 20 years, and they're very different from the original variety that they have. So yes, that is true.
Great, mahalo.
Okay, moving into lettuce. This is my Molokai mix growing at the Waimanalo Experiment Station. I like to test out my seeds on the different islands to see how well they do. Next. So lettuce comes in all kinds of shapes and colors. It's just amazing. Next. So there are some people only identify about 5 different types. I kind of break it down to 8 different types of lettuce. The first lettuces grown like in Egypt, in places like that, were for oil. The seeds were used to make oil. Celtis is another older variety that was used to grown for their stems. They kind of taste like asparagus. Everyone knows the cause or the romaine, the crisp head or the head lettuce, and the loose leaf types. And then we also have a class of lettuce called Batavian or summer crisp. So if you went into a catalog such as Johnny's, they'll have a category called summer crisp. And these are the most heat tolerant of the different varieties. Then you have Butterhead, kind of a delicate soft lettuce, and Oakleaf. Most Oakleaves can handle heat as well. And many of the varieties are combinations of these. Next. So this is Celtes. This is a French variety called Cracoviensis. And if you see that on the bottom of the picture, there's a pick handle. That's my pick on the bottom. So this plant is about 2 feet tall. The leaves are about a foot long. And these are grown for its stems, and the stems taste like asparagus. Next. So this is a cross between a leaf lettuce and a romaine. This is a baby romaine called Pandero. Next. This is an oak leaf. You usually have green ones and red ones. Some of them are much more serrated than this one. Next. This is a Butterhead, this is actually a cross between a Butterhead and a Manoa lettuce, and it's called Hilo Green. It was developed by a friend of mine in Hilo. Very heat tolerant, more heat tolerant than Manoa. Trying to cross it back to Manoa to make it look more like Manoa. Next. Oops. We got kicked out.
Sorry, I'm trying to fix that. I do not know.
Okay, no problem. No problem. So we're on the lettuce somewhere.
Oopsies.
At Oakleaf, yeah.
Oakleaf.
Right there, the next one. Okay, right there. Okay, and next. Okay, so these are some of the challenges in Hawaii, and a lot of it has to do with the weather. Hot conditions, humid conditions, warm nights. So the first one is tip burn. And what this is the edges of the leaf burns. And a lot of it has to do with nutrition as well as water, not getting to the edge of the plant. And I have some pictures later. Early bolting, again, from high temperatures that cause kind of a milky taste to the lettuce. And the plants, the bolting is response to, they think they're gonna die. So they're gonna perpetuate themselves by putting out seeds. And high temperatures overall, big problem. And diseases. Next.
It's not going to the next one.
Oh yeah.
Try your
Try
right
it
arrow on your keyboard.
on the arrow on the bottom.
That's what I've been doing. But that's what I've been... Uh-oh. Oh
There
no.
you
Okay, here we go. Oh, back one.
There we go.
Okay, there it is. Okay, so this is Tipburn or Manoa lettuce. On some of the lettuces, such as head lettuce, you can't tell from the outside until you cut it open. And I see this coming into Hawaii at certain times of the year, and what that means is that the major production areas in the mainland, such as Yuma, Arizona, and Salinas Valley, California, are encountering really hot weather. Next. And this is Tipburn or Manoa Leopard, Manoa Cross, and I'll be talking a little bit more about this one next. So this is a row of lettuce, about 150-foot row, and all of the lettuces look like the ones on the left. And this one lettuce called Calvella, which means summer in Hawaiian, wasn't bolting. It was very bolt tolerant. Okay, next. So this is Manoa lettuce grown in Waimanalo Experiment Station. We're having a field day and a training on seeds, organic seed training for 2 days, and we planted a field of all different types of vegetables. Manoa will look different at different times of the year. When the weather is warm, they look more like a leafy vegetable, leafy lettuce, and in the wintertime, they'll form a little mini head. Next. So Manoa lettuce is actually a variety called green mignonette that was developed in the mid-1800s, brought to Hawaii several decades ago, and was selected for warm conditions. And it's kind of unreal to think a lot of the vegetable production was below Mo'iliili Varsity all the way down to Waikiki, and all this area was in lettuce and vegetable production, including lettuce. And it's adapted to a tropical lowland conditions. And I remember growing up in Manoa, I used to play hide and seek in the lettuce fields, and they were all on raised beds. On the mainland, this is considered a gourmet lettuce. It's a compact plant. and they use it for single serve lettuce, where they put the whole lettuce right on a plate and charge you an arm and a leg. Next. So this is Manoa. One of the problems when it's a leafy type is that it has a tendency to fall apart in the store. But nowadays, I guess they sleeve it and able to keep it together. Next. So this is a variety called Leopard, developed in Oregon. It has resistance to a bunch of different diseases. A friend of mine, Frank Morton, developed it. And I sent him Manoa. I said, you should try this lettuce. He sent him Manoa lettuce, and he crossed Manoa with this lettuce. Next. So this is Leopard. It's a cross between 3 different varieties. Actually, a dark red Oakleaf, a dark green romaine, and a spotted lettuce from Austria called Flashy Troutback. It's like a back of a trout. It's a small frame, a medium-sized romaine, extra fancy colors and edges and spots and everything. Highly rated for downy mildew, which is a big problem in the mainland and also parts of Hawaii, and it has an excellent taste. Next. So what he did was he crossed this variety called Leopard, this one selection, and next. And crossed it with Manoa. This is what Manoa Leopard looks like. Okay. Next. And it comes out in all different shapes and forms. Some of them have miniature heads. Some of them look like romaines, and just a whole bunch of combinations of lettuces that I can select from. Next. And this is another one, more of a Manoa leaf with red edges, purpling edges on it. Next. So you never know how well your lettuce does until you compare it to the rest of the lettuce out there. So this is a field trial at the Pomo Experiment Station. This is down at near the North Shore, just above Wailua. So we have all these different varieties. The one on the far right is Manoa Leopard, the 2nd generation, Hilo Green, UH Manoa, and then Manoa 77. Manoa 77 has a real interesting history. Someone found a can of Manoa lettuce at UH, one of the refrigerators at UH from 1977. They opened up the can and it all grew. This was just 2 years ago. And then you have Manoa Leopard, the 3rd generation. And on the end is another heirloom called Bronze Mignonette. It's a brown version of Manoa. Next. So this is in the trial, and Manoa Leopard, this one variety, this larger in the center, a lot of the ones who attended the field day selected this variety because they wanted to use it for processing lettuce, to make chopped lettuce, including Hawaii Poi, Honolulu Poi Company, HPC, that does all the sprouts and chopped up vegetables and stuff. I selected the one on the left of that small dark green one. That is really characteristic of Manoa, and also the one next to it. Next. So this was the one next to it. The reason why I like this one is the leaves are flat and they're really good for making wraps. So you can get all your vegetables and meats and everything. A lot of Southeast Asians do that. And you make these little wraps and you make vegetable wraps with that. So this variety is really good for that. Next. And some of them will come out all spotted like this with a Manoa type leaf. Next. So I worked on developing new varieties out of this Manoa Leopard. This is one selection of Manoa Leopard. This lettuce is about 1.5 feet across. It's huge. It's for large families. Next. So in 2014, I planted it out in the heat of summer. I mean, we're hitting 90 degrees in Honua. And so I planted out 50 plants, and anyone that had Tipburn, I cut it out. And the ones that started bolting early, I cut it out. And you can see the differences. This is all the same variety. Some of them are tall, they're starting to bolt. Some of them haven't even started to bolt. Some of them are kind of halfway in between. Next. So I selected 7 out of the 50 varieties that were the most heat tolerant. And this is the varieties right here. Next. So I'll harvest it. I can dry it in the field if it's a dry, reliable weather, or I can just cut it up and dry it in a shed. And these are the 7 selections that I made. Next. So in 2016, I wanted to see how these lettuces grow in the wintertime. I mean, Hawaii, you have a year-round growing season, and some varieties will do good in the summer, and some varieties will do good in the winter. On the far left is seed production of this is an Ethiopian kale that does really good in Hawaii, very heat tolerant. And these flags represent different selections I'm making. Like I'm looking for romaine types. I'm looking for the true Manoa look. I'm looking for miniature heads, and then I'm looking for colorful. So these are all the different flags of the different types of selections I'm making. They were doing really well in December and January, and then in February we had a major storm and wiped out about 75% of the varieties. But the 25% that survive are tolerant to winter weather, heavy rain, and diseases. Next. So this is one of them that did really well, kind of a miniature head, little red edges to it, more of a Manoa lettuce type leaf. A lot of people like that Manoa lettuce leaf, that soft, crunchy with a nice watery midrib. Very characteristic of Manoa lettuce. Next. So this is last year, early last year. I harvested during the winter, different varieties. And you can see the different colors of the seed head. These are different. Some of them are spotted, some of them are red, some of them are more yellowish, and some of them are more green. Next. And these are how lettuce flowers look like. They're related to daisies. When they're in bloom, they're beautiful, all different shapes and colors. This plant is a red, kind of a reddish plant. It's a spotted lettuce. Next. And this is how the seed heads look. And you can see the seeds in the middle of that fluffy stuff. And there's a whole cluster of seeds. It might even be like 20 seeds in each one. Okay, next. Somebody asked the question, how tall are Manoa lettuce when they flower? Probably about 2 feet, about 2 feet tall, 2.5 feet tall. So this is how the seed heads look. I have it dried out on a tarp in a garage. Next. So this is how you can harvest lettuce. So you harvest the seed heads when they're mature. All the seeds will not mature at the same time. So you need to kind of look at hit for the middle of when is the best time to harvest. I don't know what the weather is going to be, so I usually go out and harvest some of the early ones just by hand, so I don't lose that in case a disease comes in or the weather changes. I'll just harvest a little bit from each of the key varieties I'm trying to save, and then I'll let the remainder just fully mature, and they'll bring it out in the field. Need to allow it to dry in a protected, ventilated area to minimize any mildew. You can dry it in the field if the summer weather is predictable. You can put a blue tarp down and then throw all the seeds on the seed heads on there, let it dry up. Then when you dry it, you need to loosen the seeds from the seed heads. Some people just step on it, they smash it, they roll it. We roll it with our hands. I have a friend on the mainland has a little Toyota pickup truck that he throws all the seeds on a tarp, covers the tarp, and he drives back and forth with his Toyota pickup truck. Then I winnow the seeds, which is I use a fan to blow through the seeds, and it'll take out all the light stuff, the chaff, all the immature seeds and the impurities, and what you get left is the good seeds. And then I pack, label, and refrigerate. Next. And this is the back door to our office. There's a nice ventilation that blows through it. I can just winnow the seeds here. I'll just pour it down. I have a fan in the back. You can't see. Sometimes I use fan. Sometimes if the trade wind's blowing off, I can just let the wind blow. And you can see some of the impurities in there. They'll start floating out and blowing, and the seeds will drop into the other container. Next. And this is how the seeds look when they're pretty much clean. There's still some debris in there. I see some stems and some other stuff, but this is getting pretty close to totally clean. Next. And you can actually do selections in a seedling stage. I can start a whole bunch of seeds of one. This is all one variety. I think Debbie asked the question, how do you get to the final step? You keep on doing that. Sometimes I use screens. I try to screen some junk out. I keep on winnowing until I can get it out. If there's a small batch, I can just take it out by hand and remove all the sticks and stems that didn't get separated out. So yeah, in this is all one variety. This is Manoa Leopard. If I wanted to have a green Manoa Leopard, I select all the green seedlings out. If I wanted red ones or spotted ones, I can select it out in this stage, and I can grow it to maturity and make the seeds out of those. Next. So this is what I do sometimes, and I know other farmers who do this on the mainland. These are 3 different varieties. Somebody asked a question, should you refrigerate seeds? Yes, you need to refrigerate the seeds. They don't last well in the weather. Our climate is about 65% humidity. Humidity is the killer of seeds. So you need to dry it down, put it in I like to put it in containers because the humidity in the refrigerator can change a lot. So once you dry it down, you can put it in a packet and put it in a jar and put it in the refrigerator. So this is 3 varieties of lettuce. On the right side is a variety called, there's a red one called Pandero. And then also with Concept is a romaine. And then on the left side is Hilo green with Pandero again. So what'll happen is some of these will naturally cross. And when I harvest all the red ones, I harvest the green ones all separately. And when out of the red seed, if I get some green ones out of the red seed, I know that's the cross. And in the green one, if I harvest some of the red seeds out of the green one, I know that's the cross. And that's how I can make new varieties. Okay, next. Okay, we have a break. How long should our break be? Should it be a 10-minute break or
5 minutes? Is that okay? Or
5
10?
minutes? Yep, up to you folks. I'm open.
There's a couple questions though. Should we do those first real quick?
Yep.
Healani was asking about how many rounds do you grow the variety until it's stable?
It's usually about 6 generations.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do commercial, I like to have my lettuces mixed up. You know, when I sell it at the store, they go, wow, these are all different varieties, huh? And I don't say anything. They're not all different varieties. They're the same variety. So, you know, variety is the spice of life. Everybody wants a different variety. They don't know that they're eating all the same variety.
Awesome.
What other questions do we have here? Let's see.
I had a question actually, if you don't mind. I know you're really testing for in the ground soil, but does anyone at CTAR, you guys do tests in hydroponics or aquaponics or for microgreens rather than going for the full head?
There's some people that do aquaponics. I think you can do water testing. The aquaponic one is hard. They do mostly water testing for pure water and not really nutrient. I think you need to look at monitoring your salinity and you know, you're looking at I guess electrolysis. I don't want to say electrolysis, but you have to analyze and make sure your your levels are right. I
Right.
don't get involved. I don't get involved with aquaponics. We got so much soil over here. I don't want to waste the soil.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was just curious
Yeah.
because especially for,
Yeah.
when you're
For
growing them.
residential, in Waimanalo, there's a program of aquaponics. Now they're taking it statewide. They had a Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant to teach the community, the Hawaiian Homes community in Waimanalo, how to grow. I think that's Ilima, and they're doing it with fish. That's another system where you can do hydroponics. A lot of people are moving into this area, especially small backyarders. And I think it's worth doing if you don't have a lot of land and you can do a lot of production in a small place. Any other questions? Yeah, somebody had a question like, should some seeds stay at room temperature? No. Well, there are some seeds that cannot be stored well. You know, some of those large seeded type, large seeds such as like mountain apple, that don't store well, but they still will do better in refrigerated conditions than in room temperature. So I would recommend that all seeds be stored in refrigerator. Okay.
Okay, we can just
Any
take
Okay, take a break.
just a quick break, right, Tyler? Just a few minutes in case you just need to run and grab something.
Okay.
Okay, come right back.
ready to jump back into it soon?
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I just wanted to look at some of the questions. Someone talked about wraps with poke. Yeah, definitely. We used to we make curry, hamburger venison curry wraps with vegetables in it. And then somebody mentioned about desiccant. Yes, I would recommend using desiccants to dry down the seeds. Usually get a container, like a Tupperware container or something, and you put the desiccants in there and dry it down. That's the most reliable way of drying. Okay, next.
Yeah, that's what Donna taught everyone last month. So everyone's got that down. They should be doing their buckets. And then she recommended moving the seeds to smaller containers, airtight containers you can store in the fridge or.
The way, that's the way.
Yeah, we're on it, right, guys?
Yeah, I didn't want to cover that. I know there's too much to cover, so I figured Donna would do that. So that's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
she did tomatoes as well. Wait, I had one about rat lungworm. Is there any way, like, have you noticed any slug snails that prefer certain varieties? Nah, it's hard, right?
No.
They don't care. They're not picky.
No. I mean, we could do a whole thing on rat lungworm. I mean, the thing about it is to wash your vegetables in bright light. That is the key to the whole thing. And do not wash whole lettuces. Break all the lettuce down, individual leaves, inspect them. On the spotted lettuce, that was real interesting because two of my friends, including my wife, said, I don't want spotted lettuce because you can't see the slug from the spots. And I was really excited about spotted lettuce. I took it down to the store. I said, wow, this is going to be the newest thing. And I took it down to Friendly Market and I kind of just left it over there and didn't say anything. And the produce manager walks in and he goes, who brought this lettuce here and didn't wash it? He thought the spots were dirt. I said, okay, we got a problem here.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. Okay, next. So tomatoes. There's a lot of different kind of tomatoes and we're going to talk a little bit about them. Okay, so there's all kind of different colors. There's some amateur breeders on the mainland that just go crazy. This is a global phenomenon with everybody breeding different kind of varieties. Yeah, this thing, some people look at it and they're asking me, what is this? You know, next. So tomatoes have a lot of different diseases. These are just some of them. This is probably like a third of them. The two of them I got in yellow are major problems in Hawaii, in production areas on Oahu as well as Maui. One is called tomato yellow leaf curl virus that came out of the Middle East, and spotted wilt virus that we've had in Hawaii since the 30s and 40s, but new strains have appeared. Next. We also have cracking problems with certain varieties. Sometimes it has to do with the species that are involved. Some varieties crack much easier than others. In Hawaii, cracking can be a real problem. So you want to find varieties that are more tolerant to cracking. Next. This is a disease that it's usually a rare disease, but after that big storms we had in Hawaii, I see it all over the place. Powdery mildew on tomatoes. I had a call from Kauai. He said, oh, we got all these white spots. I said, oh, that's powdery mildew. And just recently I've seen it showing up on chili peppers. Breeding resistant varieties would help overcome this problem. Next. And this is almost like the Tipburn on lettuce. This is blossom end rot from really high temperatures. This field was in 95-degree temperatures. The water, not enough, you can't get enough water onto the plant. The plants cannot take up water fast enough under these really hot conditions. They basically are hyperventilating and they go into cardiac arrest, basically. And the tip of the plant, which is the tip of the tomato, starts breaking down. And you have all these black spots on the bottom and you have to throw it away. Next. And you have a lot of wild species, which is great because they have resistance or tolerance to all kind of different diseases, and you can kind of select and breed for diseases that you have in your area. And Hawaii has been a real leader in the development of that last tomato, the Peruvianum, in developing root knot resistant varieties. And Root knots, root knots are microscopic earworms that attack the roots and swell up the roots. Common problem in Hawaii. You talked about jointless tomatoes. Jointless tomatoes are ones where you pull the tomato off and the calyx stays on the plant. And they were developed for mechanical harvesting. So when they harvest with the machines, everything stays back except the tomato. If the stem stayed on and they're all piled up in, all the tomatoes will get punctured by the calyx, the stem. So yeah, that's jointless tomatoes. Next. So this is a wild variety developed by a friend of mine in Oregon, Jim Myers from Oregon State University. He crossed about 2 or 3 different wild species to make what is called an indigo tomato. It's more of a bluish color. When you take a picture of it, it comes out more blackish. It's the latest trend, high in antioxidants, flavonoids, and everybody's chasing after it. Okay, next. So this is what's called, well, this is before the blue ones came along. This used to be the darkest tomato called black tomatoes. These were developed in the Eastern Bloc nations in Russia and the Ukraine. So a lot of the varieties, they have a very different kind of taste, more of a full body taste. And I've been fooling around with this. I have some I'm harvesting right now, cherry tomatoes called chocolate cherries. Very unique taste, and people chase after this variety. A lot of different black tomato varieties. Next, Cherokee Purple does fall into this variety, but Cherokee Purple is actually from the United States, and all the rest of them are from the Eastern Bloc nations. Next. So you have 2 different types of tomatoes. You have the indeterminate ones. They're more bush type. They grow to a certain length and they kind of stay there. You have more concentrated set. You have a lot of tomatoes. And then the indeterminates are the ones that can grow continuously, usually prune off the side shoots. These are the ones used for greenhouse production. And then you have an emerging area called dwarf tomatoes. Some of them are really small, coming out of the University of Florida. Some of them are really short and have a whole lot of tomatoes on it. The ones developed in Hawaii are more the determinate ones. They grow close to the ground. They can handle the windy conditions. On Molokai for the last 3 months, you probably had 3 episodes of 50-mile-an-hour winds, and your tomatoes will end up in Honolulu. Okay, next. So this is how trellis tomato looks. This is our homestead, and I got some lettuces growing as well as tomatoes. I need to prune the sides and then grow it up, and I have to tie each plant. Either I can tie it with a string around each plant. I can use clips to clip it on, but these are very productive. These are a very productive system. Okay, next. So this is how the trellis tomatoes look like. They're just like tomatoes coming out of your ears, basically. Yeah, somebody mentioned the soil is really red. I had a picture in Instagram, and somebody said, "What is that red stuff?" I said, "Oh, that's our dirt." And somebody told me, "Send me some." Next. So these are grape and mini Romas. We kind of concentrate, my wife and I concentrate on this side for the local market. Everybody likes grape tomatoes, just throw it in your mouth, and then we grow this little bit bigger one. Yeah, you can grow all kinds of different varieties of tomatoes, and they have slightly different tastes. Some of them have different kind of firmness. The firmer ones last longer. You can store them longer. Some of the more delicate ones have a really nice taste. Next. So you have to really choose what you want. So this is some of the new varieties coming out of the mainland. This is a cream of the crop line. They call it cream of the crop. This is a new tomato breeding company that I've been working with. In their first year of releases, they won 2 All-America awards, which is phenomenal. And this is one of them that won the award. It comes out striped, first striped, and then when it matures, it got light yellow stripes on it. Next. And this is another of their varieties. Now, yellow tomatoes and orange tomatoes have a slightly different citrusy type taste. So you can have all kind of different tastes on these tomatoes. Next. So this is a tomato seed production on the Volcano Research Station up in Volcano on the Big Island. This is a variety called Healani, excellent variety for Hawaii, more of a bush type, but they kind of grow it a little more off the ground. They have it all tied up just for seed production. Next. So how do you do seeds? Probably if you're going to do small batches, one way is to make a small hole in the tomato, like with a knife, and then squeeze the seeds out. If you don't make a hole, it'll explode and the seeds will be all over the place. Or you can chop it up. I usually chop up or squeeze a seed from the ripe fruit. Add a wee bit of water. What you don't want to happen is you don't want it to dry up because there's a fermentation process that goes on for a couple days. So the seeds will ferment, and what that fermentation does, it destroys the seed inhibitor around the outside of the seed that prevents it from germinating, and it also wipes out all the bacteria and fungus on the outside of the seed. And then I'll wash and keep on pouring and washing and pouring until you get the seeds all clean. And then you can dry it using sunlight near a window, or you can use desiccant such as silica gel. Next. So this is not a soup. This is tomatoes fermenting. I went a little overboard. I forgot about the seeds fermenting, and I got there and it was like really fermenting. And so then what I'll do is I'll kind of mash it all up. I'll rinse it out. I start decanting. I'll put in a big bowl, pour the water out, and all the junk will float to the top. The seeds will stay on the bottom, and I can start cleaning it up. I keep on decanting and decanting until I get the seeds clean. Next. Any questions? I thought I saw some questions flying by. Let's see what we got here. Okay.
The question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, just the part I was asking about growing tomatoes for different purposes, cooking or just eating fresh.
Yeah, different tomatoes for different purposes. So you have like the Romas that are really good for cooking, for tomato sauce. In fact, there's a ketchup shortage in America right now because all the seed packets. Everybody got the ketchup packets. There was an article the other day, major ketchup shortage in the United States because you can't get enough packets and everybody's taking takeout food. Yes, different varieties for different purposes. You have some varieties with really thick skin that are used for drying. They have a lower water content than other varieties. You have some for ketchup where you want to have high solids content. And then I like juicy, so I like a lot of water in my tomato. Some people like it a little tart. Some people want a full body taste with a sweet and tart and all kind of different aftertaste. Yeah, it gets into some other problems. How do you prevent birds from eating? I haven't had that problem. Probably a bigger problem would be mice, especially if you're growing tomatoes on the ground. The only thing I can say is you can put netting over it. And then as you go and harvest, you lift the netting up. That'd probably be the best way. Okay. Okay, let's see what else. Yeah, birds are an urban issue. It can be an issue on your island. Like if I were to grow papayas and I didn't harvest the papayas and all of a sudden the birds came and hung out in a papaya tree, you can create your own problems. If you harvested a papaya a little bit earlier, you won't have a bird problem. But once they get a hold of what's happening, you're not going to get rid of them. Okay, ready to move on? Okay, next. Okay, no beans about beans. I have a short presentation on beans. I do beans every once in a while. This year I did it big time. I had a 150-foot row of beans. I was growing seeds, a variety called pole beans, which is one of the best pole beans you can grow, long beans, really tasty. There's so many different types of beans. I mean, it's just unlimited. If you're in a dry area, you have limas. Somebody had a question on tomatoes. Let me check that question. She had a hard time growing it or something. Yeah, the hard time growing tomatoes in a wet rainforest environment. Yeah, they like a lot of sun. However, there are varieties that probably can handle that condition. You have some places in the mainland that are really wet, and varieties, people grow some varieties that do better than others. Some areas in upstate New York, in Oregon. What I would recommend is try a bunch of different varieties. Probably one of the best ones for wet conditions I've seen in Hawaii would be Komohana. It does really well, but you're always compromising. If you grow tomatoes in a wet climate, it may not be that sweet. It might be a little sour, but at least you got tomatoes. Yeah, I mean, tomatoes taste better when you ripen it on the plant, but you just gotta watch out. I mean, it's like, again, you have to compromise. You want a tomato or you want no tomatoes. So you're gonna have to decide what you want. Okay, next. So this is a pole beans, a variety called Pomoho. I have a whole bunch of different varieties in there. I got snap peas, snow peas, long beans, and all of these for seed production. And then also got tomatoes. Actually, the tomatoes went crazy and it made it hard to harvest the beans. I had to harvest it off on one side. And on the left of that green onion, that's a old Hawaiian variety called akakai, Hawaiian shallots. It formed a little shallot on the bottom. Excellent, excellent green onion. Next. So this is our harvest for the day. We have all kind of different stuff coming out of the garden, squashes and watermelon, okra and eggplants and cucumbers and a bunch of different beans. There are two main beans, and I think I'll cover it on the next slide. Next. Okay, yeah, somebody was asking, I get requests all the time for the green onion. I harvested a whole bunch this summer. Last winter, a banana box full, and the caterpillars got in and ate all the bottoms of the onion. So I lost almost all of it, and then right now I'm rebuilding. And hopefully, if I get some growing, I can share it. So there's two main varieties of beans that we grow. One is called Blue Lake, which is a pencil-shaped one, and then the other one is a Kentucky Wonder. Both of them are excellent varieties for Hawaii. A lot of different types of varieties. The pole beans, probably the best one would be Pomoho. We have two other Hawaiian varieties, one called Manoa Wonder and the other one called Hawaiian Wonder. And each one is bred for a different problem, such as rust, which is a disease, and also nematodes. And Pomoho probably has the best tasting of it and a very tender bean. Next. This is a major problem on beans. I think, I know Nancy was talking about, she had a variety that she kept on growing for seasons and seasons, and pretty soon the rose beetles didn't affect it. That can happen when you select for varieties for your environment. If you grew a whole bunch of different bean varieties, the rose beetles would eat some and not others, and then you would know which varieties can handle the rose beetle problems. Next. Long beans grow really well in Hawaii. We grow all kind of different ones. You got purple ones, green ones, you got purple tip ones. We grew it, we eat it in Filipino food such as peanut bed. And they're very heat tolerant. It's probably the most heat tolerant of any of the beans. Next. And these are the seeds from the long beans. I've been collecting varieties and sharing with some friends on the mainland, and just sending me some of their varieties as well to see what does best in Hawaii. Next. So this is talking a little bit about seed saving, which is, I think, where we want to go. This is an example of seed saving in the extreme. This is a house, a little house about 25 by 20, totally dedicated to storing seeds. And this is a friend of mine, Alan Capular from Peace Seeds in Oregon. and he has his seed house right in the middle of his yard. And over there, since it's cold, they're able to store and save seeds that we can't really do in Hawaii because we got this high humidity and high temperatures. So we're talking a little bit about seed saving, and I think trying to develop the next stage of this program. Next. So this is a seed saving workshop we had early last year in Honua. These are all people that want to save seeds. The problem we're dealing with in Hawaii in seed saving is that very few people bring seeds and everybody comes to collect. And we really need to have more seed savers to create this whole network statewide. So these seeds were given to them by about 2 or 3 of us, Jay Boss and I, and a couple people from, I'm trying to think who else was in here that brought some seeds. But this is at the Koala Center farm. Next. So this is some of the seeds that I saved. This was way back in around 2011. Since then, I've kind of increased a whole bunch of different varieties. In fact, I'm at my seed table right now. I had to make room on the seed to set up my computer over here. Next. And this was last year at the Seed Exchange at the Organic Seed Alliance. You had farmers coming from all over the United States. And this year we had a lot of them from Europe and some from South America. And everybody brought their seeds to share. So that was really great. Collected all kinds of different varieties and I shared some varieties with them. Next. So next steps. We're talking about a citizen science project that we want to do as a next step in this program. And what this involves is everybody growing some different varieties and selecting the best ones. Next. So I have a cross that was made for me by a friend of mine in Oregon, Jim Myers, and he offered to make crosses for me. So I send him every year. I think we're on our 3rd year now. I'll send him different seeds and I say, cross these 2 and cross that 2. So he crossed, this is Komohana, a variety actually developed in Taiwan and refined in Hawaii, a very resilient variety. I call this variety the cast iron variety. Can handle the weather and bad conditions. And this variety was crossed with the next variety. Next. This is Indigo Kiwi, very unique taste. It is a purple top with a green bottom. It doesn't turn red or yellow. It stays this color. It has a very unique taste. So these 2 varieties were crossed and the first generation looked like this. Next. But the next generation will not look like this. The next generation is all kind of different colors are going to come out. Some are going to come out half indigo and half yellow, half indigo and half orange, half indigo and half red. Some of them might be striped. And so next. So some of them will look like this, the next generation. Very shiny, and some of them be red, and some of them might be kind of a yellowish color on the bottom. But I'm offering these seeds out to anyone who would like to try them. And you will learn how to grow it. The key is, I mean, I'll send maybe 5 or 10 seeds, and you select the one you like the best, and you send me back the seeds. And this is the new era of citizen science. So citizens get involved in developing new varieties. The second generation, which is the ones we'll be planting now, usually in a research system, like say the research station, we need to grow out 200 of these varieties. I have over 50 varieties. I cannot grow 200 of each variety out, and I don't have enough room. So this is one way of developing new varieties where everybody grows them. They send back one variety, and all the varieties that are going out will be different. None of them will be the same. So that'll be real exciting. So this is what I'm offering to anyone who wants to be involved. Next. Also have pigeon peas, which the bean family, I think this is probably the most resilient, the strongest of the bean and pea family. well adapted to Hawaii. We can grow these out and keep them growing in our garden for years. And this is definitely a famine food. When I was growing up in Manoa, we used to have them all growing all over the place. And when we were running around in the yard, we would just eat them as we passed by. I have about 4 or 5 varieties of this that I'm willing to share. And then people can tell me which is the best one and send back seeds of that variety. Next. So these are the varieties that I have right now that I'm willing to share. I can give a few seeds of each variety and you folks can grow them out in your garden, see how well they do, select the best one and send it back to me. And the rest you can share with everybody, anybody you want. Okay, next. And the next offering is Manoa Leopard. I have a mix of Manoa Leopard. I really didn't select yet. They're all different colors. They'll come out, some will come out all green, some will come out spotted like this. I had some recently that came out kind of a reddish brown color with darker spots. Next. And that is the end. Seeking abundance, I think, is the key. I always use that word. And that was what Makahiki was all about, seeking abundance. And as we're heading out of Makahiki season, it's the time to plant. And the end. Any questions? You have more questions?
There's a few comments.
Okay.
Also saying perhaps the soil plays into color outcome of the lettuce. Is there a relationship to the soil type? No.
No. Okay. Well, see, the red soil is high in iron, but it's not in a form that the plants can take up, and it's not in a form that we can take up. But no, the red is it's from the genetics. It's in the seed.
So would now be a good time, Glenn, to post that link for the Citizen Science Project to sign up, or?
Folks got. I didn't go beyond that. You folks can, if you folks have a sign up, you folks can do that. And then I can get the seeds to you folks. Probably not going to get there till after May 4th. I'm heading out to New York on Monday. Pigeon peas, no problem. I got enough to share. So just, you folks have a sign up for everybody. You can do 1, 2, or 3. You can do all of them if you're up for it.
Okay,
Deb-
I'll post. Oh, go ahead.
You post the sign up. I'll post the calendar thing.
Okay, and Julian has a question.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. That was an amazing presentation. Lots of like really useful information. We did, this is our 4th workshop, of course. And so after the last one, my students and I, we grew these anasazi beans and they looked like really mature and good. And then I picked them and then I started to dry them and I realized like they look really small, like they're not mature enough. So I still have some growing. I'm wondering like, how do I know when they're ready to pick to be the right seed, like for drying and saving for the future?
The pods will will dry up, will turn kind of a brownish tan color.
So leave them on the plant, just growing until it turns that color, yeah?
Yes.
Awesome, mahalo.
Very, very amazing bean. That's the one they found from thousands of years ago in some kind of container, right?
Yeah, they're like so good too. We like cooked them and they were like really delicious. And then I saved some and I thought, oh, they look really healthy and good. And they were still green pods. And then I dried them and I said, these things are so tiny. This is never going to grow well.
Yeah, I mean, beans are an underrated crop. Beans are so important because that's the meat of the vegetable world. That's where you're going to get your protein if you didn't have meat. So beans are really important. There's thousands of varieties of beans. And we need to try as many as we can. If you're in a dry area, I would look at lima beans. There's a bunch of different limas. But I would grow beans.
Mahalo, Glenn.
Welcome.
We
Any
have
other questions?